There was still a little of that bleed over from the 90s from the Jamaicans that were still down there in South Dallas. That just, if you worked the Southeast and you had an old school trainer, they all told you those stories about how ruthless and violent the Jamaicans were. So they were still down there. But when I started doing the ganging and stuff, I found that it came pretty easy to me because growing up on the streets and knowing that stuff, I was like, I like this. I like doing this. This is fun. Getting nicknames, getting faces, putting names with faces. And you're developing like an intel for these guys, keeping track of where they're from and all that. And then, I kind of had everything all over the place. And then I met Norm, and he kind of got me squared away on how I needed to do stuff and how to talk to people. I think the biggest thing from the gang was learning how to talk to people. I just heard what sounded like 3 automatic gunshots. And then I looked down at my left leg. My left leg looks like the scene of the cover of Iron Maiden on the Time Traveler. Immediately, like, the training kicks in. When I got to SWAT and I started doing that stuff, I mentally prepared myself for whenever I would get shot. And that's one thing that I did learn from several operators. Not the if, but the when. Now, it's not if you get shot, it's when you get shot. I'm like, well, this is it. Just got shot. So start putting on the tourniquet. So I'm fighting the shock that's trying to set in. Second, I'm trying to fight the thoughts in my head. Am I going to die? Am I not? Am I not going to get to see my kids? Am I going to say bye to Lisa? So that mindset then, it turned into fight mode. Like, I got to make it to the hospital. I got to make it to the hospital.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation. Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give a platform to hear their incredible stories. We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us. Our community is small, but it is strong. We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes. But together we can grow, we can heal, and we can learn from those mistakes. And together we can bridge the divide.
Welcome back, all the ATO listeners. I'm Misty Van Kuren. I'm here today with Joe King and Sergeant Josh Fertel, and of course we have a guest host today, Matt Baines. Thank you for coming. And today's episode is a tribute to one of the Dallas's true warriors. He was born and raised in East Dallas and attended Woodrow Wilson High School, and then later went to Dallas Baptist University where he played soccer as a goalkeeper. He hired on the Dallas Police Department in 2000 and spent his first 4 years in patrol at, you guessed it, Southeast. He contributed 5 years with our prestigious gang unit in a time where that unit was hard-charging and considered the go-to group to find our most sought-after criminals in the city. The following decade, he was an operator in SWAT as a member of the Dirty 30s squad. And he is currently a detective for the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force. Our guest is riddled with vigor. I have personally witnessed an inextinguishable effort, energy, and enthusiasm for police work his entire career. He's never faltered. During his tenure, our guest has lost a beloved teammate in battle, has proven durable, healing from a horrific injury, and faced grief and pain with resilience. As a teammate, I pulled a favorite excerpt from the book In Search of the Warrior Spirit by author Richard Strozzi Heckler. I feel it gives a true insight into our guest today. The team to us is everything. It's the main thing. We share everything together. It's family. It's closer than my own family. There is nothing I wouldn't do for any of my team members. Nothing at all. Our bonding has to do with life and death. We share everything, including our fears. And I feel like this paints a great picture of our guests. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a lifesaver in 2018, a father of 3, a lifelong teammate and brother, Detective Darian Loera.
Whoa.
Man, that's a heck of an intro. I'm gonna have to record that and use that whenever I do any speaking. Thank you.
It's more than Matt got.
Definitely more than Matt got.
Yeah, he would. That's because he wanted to do it shirtless, and we were thrown off by that.
I was
yeah.
distracted.
Yeah, Misty was very distracted and looked incredible. Darian, I've known you since you got to Southeast. We're going to jump right into that. How was it when you got Southeast? You worked at the jail, right, before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you hit Southeast, what did you get into, and what group did you start running with? I think I vaguely remember.
So, obviously in the academy, I wanted to go to Central because that's where I grew up and that's where I was more comfortable. I landed, when you put your wish list, you get, I put Central, and I think I had like Southeast towards the bottom. But so I got Southeast. I get there. I started on days. My first phase, my first training was on days, and we get there, and he's like, "Hey, where are you from?" I'm from Dallas, Texas, born and raised here. So his question's like, "Do you know where Jim Miller is?" I said, "Row right there, Buckner right over there, Lake June right over there." He's like, "Okay, you're driving," and it's a shout out to Myron Scott. So right out the back, I see this big dude. He looks heavy set, and I thought, man, all we're gonna do is like eat all day, and that was the most opposite description of what Myron Scott was. I mean, that dude was a hustler, and I worked my butt off on training on first phase, incredibly, and I learned a lot from Myron. So when I got to Southeast, I realized, man, this is a great station. I mean, there was, even on days, you had car chases on days, foot chases on days, just all kinds of good stuff happening. And then I finish up training, I get sent to evenings, and it was like days times 10, because now you would go to jail like 3 times a day on a felony, and you get off late, and you talk to you go back and you talk to your academy classmates that go to other channels and stuff like that, the other stations, and they're like, there's no way, and you're like, oh yeah, no, really. I mean, stuff literally falls in your lap over there. I mean, you just, sometimes without even trying, you get into something, and it's in your jail. So I learned a lot from Southeast. I made some great friends, Joe, Josh, Misty, obviously Matt. We met each other later. But I had nothing but the utmost respect for Southeast. I think when I first got there, there was an old head that said, he mentioned it. They used to nickname it like Fort Apache back in the 90s. And it's like a nickname that was given from like a East Coast station where like it's like the most dangerous, the most, crime, ridden station. It was known as Fort Apache. So back in the 90s, that's kind of what it was nicknamed. And, man, it lived up to its name. I mean, there was, I did every possible arrest out there. I saw plenty of dead bodies out there. And I definitely had more than just my share of car chases. That was definitely fun.
What's the best squad car for a car chase?
So Element 328 had probably the best squad car for a car chase. Josh already knows. So when I was on deep nights, my training cycle on deep nights, I rode with my trainer, Wendell Jones. Somehow this Crown Vic, when you're academy, they say the Crown Vic has a governor, so it cuts off at like once you get to 100 miles an hour or something. But it felt like this car did not stop at 100 miles an hour. Like it would just go like 120. And it would just fly. And no matter what you got into, whether you bottomed out the bottom of it or ran over the middle of the center concrete median, that car just kept coming back every single time. It like would never die out. I remember I bottomed it out and all that, and I thought I broke it and everything. And like a week later, once I came back from my days off, there it was, back in the Sallyport, ready to go again. It was a Ford Crown Vic.
I thought you were going to mention the Ken Strauss Caprice that always smelled like dead animals, and
The 94?
yes, yeah. and it ran great. And
well, the other great one was the Dodge Intrepid that I think we had like two, and
That was a little screamer there.
and we were like on Buckner chasing a car for somebody, and the bad guy does a U-turn, and everybody does U-turns, and the guy that was I think one has gone to the U.S. Marshals now. He tried to do a U-turn on the center median of it, and it just got stuck right in the middle of it like a seesaw. So we're all passing him up, waving at him like, haha, you're stuck and we're gone. So yeah, that was pretty fun. It's kind of those times you wish you did have a camera to get a picture of that. It was pretty epic.
When you were at Southeast, is there any incidents or arrests that stand out to you? I know we had a lot of fun, but what happened out there that kind of just stood out to you as far as stuck with you?
I'll see running with you, Pat, and Sergeant Misak.
Jaime and that group.
Yeah. Team Castro, basically.
Yeah.
It was fun. You learned a lot. Biggest thing that I gravitated to you guys to run with you guys and wanted to get into stuff with you guys because you guys worked as a team. It was a team, and when you grow up playing in a team environment, like I played soccer for a long time, I played baseball, basketball growing up. My mindset was as a teammate and be a team. So when I saw how you guys did stuff and worked as a team, I immediately gravitated towards you guys. It was kind of like, hey, can I please get in a car with you guys one day? And I think like anything else, like a team, it's like you guys kind of let me do a little bit and then a little bit more. And then eventually, we would do, you guys finally let me start getting into the squad and stuff. So I learned a lot through that. I mean, we did a lot. We did some great arrests. I had, we went from a couple of crack rocks in a house and a car to multi-kilo deals. I never thought I'd ever stop a car that had, 8 kilos in it. I think we did a stop one time for the, DEA had a tip, and we were flying all over the place, and we stopped the car. I think Mario Gomez and myself, and got kilos out of it. That was definitely a memorable arrest, being able to get that much drugs off the street.
Well, it seemed like that springboarded you for the rest of your career of what came after Southeast. You went to the gang, and then you go to SWAT, and then now you've always been involved in a team setting. And we're going to get into some more of those, and I would like to get into how you started gang. And can you tell us about that process? Is when you applied for gang and how that went, and what did the gang unit mean to you to make you want to apply? And I want you to describe how the gang unit was back then.
Okay. So when I was at Southeast, I was approached one time by a lieutenant, and he said, hey, the gang unit is doing this thing. It's called a liaison program, and you'll come out here and you'll ride out with some of these gang unit guys, and you'll work with them. Basically, you'll be the contact guy between patrol and the gang unit. Whenever the gang unit's not here, you'll go to shootings, get gang cards, and start trying to get some information for them. And so you were like you were part of the gang unit like a part-time team. So when I did that, I started meeting some of the gang guys, BK Nelson, Norm Smith, Leroy Quigg, and those were the main ones that were down there. So whenever shooting would come out, whether it was in, at the time, Southeast covered South Oak Cliff, Pleasant Grove, South Dallas. So any shootings that would happen, I would go out there with whoever was riding with me, and I was just out there learning the craft of the streets. I knew the gang stuff growing up because I grew up in East Dallas, so I knew some of the gang stuff. But it was very different once you did it from the police aspect of it, because it was a little it wasn't just a couple guys just doing something crazy on a Friday night. I mean, there was.
I got a question. What were the active gangs when you first went to the gang unit, the most active in the city of Dallas?
So, like for me growing up, like East Side Locals were like the most, and Ovario were like the most active Hispanic gangs that I knew growing up, especially through the high school. They were like the ones that was kind of rattling each other. The projects, the Fraser Courts were the 415 Bloods. They were just you know, a lot of red, hardcore. There was still a little of that bleed over from the 90s from the Jamaicans that were still down there, South Dallas. That just, historically, I think if you worked the Southeast and you had an old school trainer, they all told you the stories about how ruthless and violent the Jamaicans were. So they were still down there. But when I started doing the ganging and stuff, I found that it came pretty easy to me because growing up on the streets and knowing that stuff, I found that I was like, I like this. I like doing this. This is fun. Getting nicknames, getting faces, putting names with faces, and you're developing like an intel for these guys, keeping track of where they're from and all that. And then, you know, I kind of had everything all over the place, and then I met Norm, and he kind of got me squared away on how I needed to do stuff and how to talk to people. I think the biggest thing from the ganging, it was learning how to talk to people, you know.
Well, in Dallas, back then, as even to this day now, there's always a nexus with really all the crimes, whether it's organized theft or drug dealing or assaults or homicides. The majority of it goes back to gangs. And, you know, there's, and back then, the gang unit was looked at, it was, as far as specialized unit, was really the cream of the crop. You had Norm Smith and Quigg was over there, and you and Matt Baines was over there too, and Tina. That was the pinnacle of a specialized unit. You mentioned Norm, and Norm was the guy. He was running the show. He was the best at his job over there, and everybody pretty much followed suit, and they wanted to be like him, and also they wanted to basically please him and do a good job and not disrespect him or disrespect that unit. Is that right?
That's a good description of Norm. That is. Norm was very different from most because of his appearance, tall, big blue eyes, and his swagger of how he approached people. You know, although he may just come across as, you know, just a little relaxed, a little laid back with when we're talking to gangsters, but he did it so that he would build that rapport with them. You know, and it's funny because, you know, if you ever watch that movie Colors, I mean, it's an epitome of Norm Smith. You know, I mean, I remember there's that one scene where Robert Duvall is talking to Sean Penn, and he's telling us, like, look, you come out here and you fight every motherfucker out here, try to throw everybody in jail. At the end of the day, you're the only one mad. Well, he would drive that point. Say, look, you can come out here and try to fight everybody. At the end of the day, you're the only one that's going to be pissed. If you come home, your wife's going to divorce you. You're going to end up in a shit house, and it's just not going to be good. And he was big on building that rapport, which is another thing that gangsters would make fun of Hodges, which was Robert Duvall. You know, they're like, you still with that rapport shit, Hodges? And you know what? It worked. It worked with Norm. So I modeled a lot of the stuff I did in the ganging after him. I know Chief Schultz, Tina Schultz did the same. We were partners for pretty much my whole time I was down there. And we did, and we had a lot of fun with that. And Norm had a lot of connections in the community, not just gangsters, but I mean, you know, community leaders and stuff like that. So he would meet a lot of people. Even after we would get off work, he'd go to these community meetings that meet with people and stuff like that and get information. I think the most impressive stuff that you could always get, and there was a guy on patrol when I was there, Troy Klingelsmith, was just incredibly talented at just going to these little homes, man, in South Dallas and talking to people and having coffee with the little old ladies and finding out where the crime is. That was something that Norm did. You know, it was something that we kind of got away from now in policing, you know.
Yeah, well, they were doing community policing before it was the thing. Now we're pushing it nationwide, and they were actually doing it before it was even really created.
Correct.
Yeah, clear about Klingel. He was incredible. That's what it took, though. Norm went and got intel from actually people that had their ear to the ground in the community. They were the ones being terrorized by these gang members, and they were having to live amongst the violence and the drug dealing, and Norm recognized that, and he actually went out and embraced the community, and they embraced him back.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, he had a lot of respect for a lot of gang members. You know, he did because they knew that you know, he had a job to do, and they were doing their thing. You know, wouldn't be out of the round. Just you pull up, there's a bunch of gangsters there, like on a corner behind a convenience store or something, and you pull up, you and Norm jump out, and they all kind of get on their knees, and one guy says, "Hey, I got a gun on me," you know, and it was like a compliment of how just his presence, you know, just went through the community about these guys knew better. They knew not to, you know, not to test the waters. Some they did, some did. And that's where guys like myself and Jeremy Foy, Craig Redden went to the ATF. That's where we came in. We were like pit bulls. Some dude ran, and it was on. The foot chase was on.
Trump monkeys.
We really were the Trump monkeys for Norm. I mean, he's like,
Release.
yeah, go get him. And Norm would run back to the car and get the car. But that was the fun part. I still think there's nothing more fun than just a hellacious car chase that ends up in a foot chase over some fences and just test everything that you have, you know. And I think that's still, to me, that's the most fun of adrenaline dump you could probably ever get.
Street cop stuff.
It is. It really is.
Old-fashioned street cop.
It's old-fashioned street cop, man. I always enjoyed that.
Didn't homicide go to you guys when you were gang unit, and all the suspects they were looking for, weren't you guys the go-to to find them for them?
Correct. There was a chief at one point that was over us, and he said, "Hey, you know, I appreciate these drugs and guns and money y'all are bringing to me, but you know what I'd like to see is remember the gang file is our bread and butter. Our goal is if a homicide detective walks in here with a nickname or a tattoo, that he walks out here with the true name of a suspect." And that became our goal, was to be sure that the gang file was up to date, current, pictures, tattoos if need be, and we would do that. And not just homicide. I mean, we had federal agents, you know, detectives. We had everybody. I mean, the biggest compliment I still get to this day, and it's a great compliment, is when you come across these retired officers or especially these homicide detectives or capers detectives that say, "Hey, man, you know, when you guys were in the gang and you guys were great. You guys took care of business. You guys did the job." So it was a lot of fun. It was I really, yeah, I had nothing but fun my years in the gang. It was definitely something that, you know, that I wanted to do. It's kind of one of those places where I wanted to go when I joined this department, and I'm glad I went. And every single guy that was there, including Tina Schultz, I still have nothing but the utmost respect for him. I still talk to a lot of them, still friends with them. But it was something different. It was something unique. You know, we'll probably never get to that again. I don't know, but it was just a lot of fun to have those people. And we were all close. We really were. Back then, if you asked me somebody's name, I could tell you wife's name, kids' names, and all that. You know, when I got married to my wife, Lisa, you know, they all came to my wedding. So that was pretty neat. One of the final memories of Norm is of him at my wedding. In typical Norm fashion, he's got like 4 plates of sliced cake in his hand, you know, and I'm like on a dance floor with Lisa dancing, and I see Norm just dancing on his own back to his chair with like 4 slices of cake. And I mean, that was just typical Norm. Norm's, you know, that's typical Norm. You know, it was like, you know, I think Andy Caceres said a story in his funeral about, you know, every time, you know, Andy was a health freak, so he never ate anything fattening. So he would just eat pancakes just dry. So Norm would always be like, "Hey, man, can I have your syrup? Can I have that butter?" So that was Norm. And if you went to Norm and said, "Hey, man, I had a bad day. I mean, I'm just and that," and he's like, "Man, let's go eat." And that was, that was his way to get over some stress and talk about stuff. It was over like a really good, juicy hamburger.
How tall was he?
Gosh, 6'5" maybe?
How much do you think he weighed?
Put him at 3.
So, probably 280, 300.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of one of the teaching points that we push now, especially Matt, who now teaches narcotics and stuff like that. When you do this job is dangerous as it is, but there's other things that you do, whether it's narcotics, fugitive, SWAT. You want to be in shape for that moment when someone goes down, because it turns into dead weight. And I think the day that Noah went down, he went 300 plus.
Sure.
Dead weight. And if you talk to those officers that were out there that day, they had a hard time getting him off that doorway, in front of that door, because he weighed so much, and you had snow and ice and all that.
Take us back to 2009 in those apartments at Wadsworth.
So, first of all, I'll start out. I wasn't there. I was actually on a flight back from Mexico. My grandfather had died. So, I was flying back. Norman and myself had been working this guy down there off of Wadsworth, wanting for some robberies and stuff like that. They've been working all day. They get ready to go home. They get a tip about this dude being there off of Wadsworth, our guy. So they do what the gang unit does. They got everybody. They said, hey, we got, this dude. I don't want to say his name. He's over there. Let's go get him. And we did, and they did what we did hundreds of times. They went up there. They found out where he was. They tried to sneaky poo on him with the vehicles and the squad cars around the corner. They try to corner him in a parking lot, and he does this super Spider-Man where he climbs over like a flight of stairs, jumps over, lands on a hood, flips over that, and runs into an apartment. Then they went to the apartment. And then, some guys went to the back. Mario Gomez and Norm go to the front. They start knocking on the door. They do a ruse. Somebody opens the door.
Tell us what a ruse is for our listeners out there that may not know.
So a ruse is where you just tell them, hey, this is, so-and-so, just to see if they would open the door and see who it is.
Housekeeping.
Like other than police, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, it's it's red, and they open the door. They immediately shut it. They try to make entry into it, and I think the first round went out through the door. Then the second one hit Norma in the face. Chaos, obviously, then ensues. They try to get Norm off the door, off the X, as we call it, right? Granted, it'd been snowing, icy, a couple of days before. Coach Josh knows, he was in SWAT at the time. He'll tell you how the squad cars were sliding everywhere. He had to go out there. He goes down as they're all trying to pull Norm, because he's now 300 pounds, dead weight. They get their eyes away from the door, and the door opens again, and another guy, someone shoots like 2 rounds towards the ground. Craig Redden sees it, and he shoots back through the door, misses the guy. They get Norm out of there, around the corner, start trying to do some first aid, and then it's chaos. It's confusion. What just happened? What's going on? Get on the radio. Obviously, we used to work off channel 11, I think, at the time, or 9, channel 9. And now we're going to 7 and trying to figure out where we are. There were some mistakes that were made that day. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. There's some mistakes that we made, but when you do that job for so long and you get comfortable with it, at the end of the day, we got complacent, and that happened. For me, I was on 635, headed home. My dad, somebody just picked us up. I don't remember who. I remember just being in one of the vehicles. I get a call from Tina Schultz, Chief Schultz. Tells me just what happened, and I'm just like, just fucking give me the Baylor. So my dad hauls ass to Baylor. I remember getting there, and, they're all there. And they put us in this room, and it's kind of weird just when you think about it. You're in a room, it's got like some glass and stuff, and you knew the news was coming just because what they said they saw out there, Tina and all them. Tina rode in the ambulance with him when she was telling me what all happened and what his state at the time. And by that time, the rest of the gang unit that wasn't there gets to the hospital, and Sergeant Aranan came in and told us that Norm had died. And that was tough. That was tough. And it was tough for me in so many different ways. Number one is, man, I just lost like one of the mentors that I ever had on this department. I looked up to Norm. I modeled my interview skills after Norm. And a lot of stuff after what he did, the way he carried himself. And that was tough to do, and as a teammate, from being in an environment where you're a team, I feel like I failed the gang unit because I wasn't there. I love the adrenaline. You guys know it. I mean, we're Southeast. We sneak up on people, from an alley, from a distance, and nothing was funner than chasing a dude and running an apartment and you're just crashing it, and having a big old battle, and right behind you is Joe and Pat and Misty and everyone else, and it's just the battle rattle. And I feel like the day that I should have been there, I wasn't. I liked going up to the door. It's kind of one of the reasons why I went to SWAT. I liked going up to the door, and I think I should have been there with Mario, because Mario was my partner. And at my time at Southeast, so I felt like I failed them by not being there.
Obviously, that's not a feeling that somebody can take from you. We all have our, the way we personally feel about whether our presence, when we're not somewhere, or whether we made a mistake, or what have you. But before we transition into your next part of your career, I think that you mentioned Norm was your biggest mentor, and I wasn't in the gang unit, but the two of you can probably attest that he was probably several people's mentors, right, Matt?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he was, I believe there's, and I think we mentioned this in another podcast, but I think there's a part of your career, and it's probably not till the latter part of your career that you realize where your service lies, and maybe sometimes where your you really don't recognize what your servitude is. But from everything I've known or have heard about Norm, that was his service. That was his job. He molded and sculpted several of you. I know a lot of people that came out of the gang unit then, when it was as large as it was, that are phenomenal police officers, whether they were that way before they got in there or afterwards. But it's probably safe to say that Norm and everybody else is just not him, but the environment that's created when you have an individual such as that, or when you have a group that's like that. But it takes a leader of a group to create that, right? If you could have disarray and have a bunch of people that love their job and have not one single leader or one person that people listen to and look up to, in that place it'd be a fucking disaster,
Yeah.
So
I think the unique thing too that we always stress was, and the gang unit, man, we got along great. It wouldn't be, you could sit there and have just short of a knockout, drag out fight with, I think one time me, Jermaine Walls and myself, had an argument in the office about something. And, Mantar's, hour and a half later, he's calling for some help down at Channel 7. And, man, I'm hauling ass from northeast Dallas to south Oak Cliff to go help him. Why? Because he's my teammate. I don't care what happened an hour and a half ago, man. That's water under the bridge. I already forgot about that. if Jermaine needs me, I'm coming. And we all went, and everybody went. So we didn't dwell on those things. We, like any other team, you're going to have your arguments, your disagreements. Yeah, I think with Norm, it's always going to be
Well, here's your glue.
Unique.
And he sculpted y'all, and obviously you've taken something from him. Matt's taken something from him. I mean, if we lined up everybody in the gang unit that was with you at the time, they would all have something very positive to say about Norm. Even people outside the gang unit would have something very positive to say about Norm. It was just his character. It was just his person. It was just his demeanor, right? And when you look back at that, you think of the blessing you had with being, having to work with an individual like that and learn from a person like that, and taking his death into consideration. When he died, what did that spark in you? Did that spark something? Did that put you drive? Like say, okay, well, I've learned this, so it's time for me to push this forward. Obviously, we grieve, but there was something inside you, I think, that kind of moved you, and probably a lot of you.
It did. Myself and Tina were tasked with being at the funeral home, different shifts and stuff. And I remember one shift they were trying to put his Class A's on him and his ribbons on him, and the staff came in and was like, "Hey, we don't know where this stuff goes. Can you put it on him?" And I remember Tina and myself going back there and putting his ribbons on him, his badge, and just looking at him. And I remember telling myself and telling him, man, that I loved him. I thanked him for everything that he taught me. And I promised him that I would be the best cop that I could possibly be after that. So after that day, which was, golly, man, that was one of the most beautiful funerals I'd ever been to. The honor guard did him right. The way they did it, it was like a Marine-style funeral. He was a former Marine himself. Well, he was a Marine, right? They had this saying, like, once a Marine, always a Marine. He was a Marine. After that, I told myself that I would do the best. So we back to the gang unit, and we started doing stuff that we, would do again, but I was a little safer than what I did before, the way that I did things. And I knew that if I wanted to be really good at being safe, then I had to find somewhere where I could learn that craft, and that was on the SWAT team.
So 2010 is when you came over to SWAT?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I remember that. Misty and I were still there. Matt, had you come over there yet?
Nope, I was still in narcotics.
That's right. We were still running your warrants, weren't we?
Yeah, I was in throes of doing the
Damn right.
Yeah, he's rolling around still in that Harley, man, laughing at me, telling me, man, they got you. They're calling you out in the middle of the night. They got you. I'll be thinking about you while I'm on this bike.
Here he came again.
Yeah.
So we transitioned into your SWAT career, and you went over there to work underneath your pseudo father. So go ahead and roll with that. Let's go into that.
You guys had some openings in the SWAT team, and I knew that's if I wanted to get better at that craft, that tactic, that's where I needed to go. There's an opening by luck in Thomas Seibel's squad. And I've known Seibel for years. I think I became friends with him when I was about 14 years old. Actually, when I was a police explorer. He actually lived one street over from me.
Did he have you working off-duty jobs then? No?
What, at 14?
Yeah.
Well,
Mijo, I hire you.
Yeah. Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Go ahead.
But his car did get paid off in 2 years.
I hope Tom listens.
So I became good friends with Seibel. Another guy, another officer taught me a lot. He was really good as a street cop. Definitely taught me to defend myself. He's a former Golden Gloves himself. Taught me how to box. I think event Misty, I think he ran Misty through the ringer a couple times when she was training. So I tried out for the SWAT team. I got myself ready. I think I was somewhat in shape from being the gang unit trunk monkey. Then I went over there and started that path. SWAT for me was very hard to grasp at first. It really was. Number one is I was never a big gun guy, just because from everything you'd seen on the streets and stuff. So my first full exposure to guns was actually in the academy. So that's when I kind of picked up. And I was an okay shooter in the gang unit. We were giving more time to the actual gang unit activity than actually just working on our go-to thing, which is I had to learn when I got to SWAT. But SWAT was not an easy thing for me. I had to learn a lot. It was very hard. But that's when I knew Misty from Southeast. She was in my sister squad. But I leaned a lot on her. And then, obviously, your squad from the training side aspect of it, Tim Houston, you. I learned a lot from you guys. But as far as being a teammate on the SWAT team, man, I could not have gone to a more suitable squad than the one that I went to, the 30s, the Dirty 30s. The characters there were in all directions, from, my squad leader, Pup, who's just big black guy, laid back. He's not about drama. He's just very chill. Rossi, who's basically like a bull. Jerry Huante, if he's not yelling at you, he's teaching you really cool stuff. Rob Hamilton, the jack of all trades. I don't think there's anything that Rob cannot do. Webb, who they should probably make Rob a saint they should make Webb a saint just because as much time as he spent with me on the range to make sure that I was squared away to be on a SWAT team. And then Lee Allen and Kevin Jackson are negotiators, who then I ended up taking some of the negotiation side for being a Spanish speaker, what they taught me. So the 30s, I loved it. I was always in the 30s my whole time there. But it was hard to learn that craft. You're not going to learn that SWAT stuff in 6 months unless you're coming straight out of the SEAL teams or something, I would imagine. But for me, I had a hard time getting it down, the tactics, the movements. Got yelled at a lot. But you make some accomplishments and some good stuff, some good strides. I mean, I think y'all remember, man, 6 months you get your patch and you're like, hell yeah, I made it. You get a patch, and then you're still new. You're still the young guy learning. You're still the guy stuck with all the paperwork at the end of a warrant. He's drawing everything up. And then I guess a big compliment then is when you start being actually on the stack, and you start running in the stack. And then I think when you feel like the ultimate is when you run point or two up there, get up to that front door. That's kind of where you feel like, okay, this is pretty badass. I've worked my way up to this. But in the meantime, to work your way up there was a lot you had to do, a lot of work. I always kind of marveled at the way Misty and Chris Webb worked the pry and Rob Hamilton. It was amazing to watch him work a pry. I thought slamming was easy because the way Jerry Huante would do it, it's not just about having arms. There's a finesse to it. There's hips that come into play. There's everything, core strength. I think some of the best slammers that I saw in SWAT were guys who actually played baseball or were really good at golf. Rick Martinez, who played baseball, one of your squad mates. Yeah, he's played baseball, I think, at St. Mary's. He was really good at slamming because he didn't use his arms. He used his core, he used his hips to just like he would swing a bat. He made it look easy. Jerry would use his hips and his arms and his Tasmanian devil voice to get in the door.
His forehead a lot.
Yeah, the aerodynamic hit.
Aerodynamic, yeah. So everybody on that squad was unique in itself, and it was fun to be in that squad. My time in SWAT was amazing. I learned a lot of stuff. I too am one of those Lieutenant Dan Calasantos recipients that I learned a lot from Dan Calasanto. I mean, a lot. and his team, the Garland SWAT guys. I would say 75% of my schools were in Garland. 95% of my ass chewing into other schools was from Garland. But I think at the end of the day, I learned a lot, going back and running stuff with them. I earned their respect. I earned the respect from the guys on the Dallas SWAT team and all that. And there's stuff that you do over there that, you'll never get that training again. Some of that training was just top notch. Some of the best shooters in the world, some of the best special forces operators in the world. My explosive breaching introduction from you was amazing. I don't know how the hell you did the math in your head. I had to do the math, but I like the way you taught me explosive breaching. Yeah, I took a liking to that. From Misty, one thing I took from Misty was I remember you first telling me, be loyal to your squad and don't fuck your sister squad.
But screw the other unit.
But he didn't mean that literally.
Happened all the time.
Yeah, but don't worry about the tent.
Don't mess with E unit.
Yeah, don't worry about E unit.
Leave us alone.
Don't just shit on that.
Changed when I got there.
Yeah.
The squad was always fucking up.
But that was one thing that Missy taught me. I stayed low to the 30s and I try not to fuck the 40s. I did learn a lot from Misty and those guys too. When I wasn't training with my guys, I would scoot over to the 40s and train with them. And there's a lot of guys over there that I learn a lot from too. So really, everyone I could name all 60 guys. Misty. Hell, even Lieutenant Mitch Boyle, who taught me how to run a command post, it was amazing. I learned so much from everybody.
Like
She's a great commander.
She was great.
she was so hands off, but you knew when you really pissed her off because she would let you know.
Yeah.
It didn't happen very often, but somehow we got.
One thing unique about people like her,
I got the chewing.
Yeah.
I didn't even do it, but I got the chewing. I was like, okay.
One thing unique about her and some of the other, even the command staff that we worked when we were in a gang unit, their old school mentality was like we were their kids and they were the parent, and you didn't get on to their kid without the parent being there. And if they did, there was a wrath. There was a wrath coming. The sergeant of gang units were like that. Charlie Cato, Santos Cadena, gosh, all the lieutenants that were in a gang unit when I was there were just really good. Tammy Elsie, that if you came after us in the gang unit and did not let them know, they were going to come after you. I don't know how many times Cato went up to Kunkel's office dragging some lieutenant that just talked crazy to us. He was like, "You're not going to talk to my guys like that," and that says a lot for the supervisor to do that.
I think so. As just a personal observation, this obviously no knock on you because you're a great officer before you got there. But when you're in SWAT, and as Misty would know, she was there longer than I. But it's funny when you see somebody when they first come in and start, and then you see them later on down the road and the maturity level, and the things that are serious, they're serious to you, but you've already digested probably 15 things before. The last time you were just looking at one, like, what do I do with this? And then, it's just the mature operator or the mature officer that sits there and looks at everything and digests everything. And I think that's, it's not funny, but it's comical in a sense because I still remember when you first came over. I was there for probably 2 more years before I promoted and left. But when I came back, I could see a big difference in you. And then just before you left, I remember you were on something. I don't remember what it was, but we were talking about something, and I was just like, man, it's so funny to see the transition of you are now one of the senior people, one of the senior operators, and just the
Growth.
Yeah, your growth is just the experience level, but yeah, it was just different. I forget what it was. I was somewhere and one of your new guys were doing something, and you were like, oh, yeah, you always gotta do that. And I was like, man, I remember when you were, because the 30s weren't. Well, first of all, what most people don't know, when I came back as a supervisor, you know how we were in our pre-briefs and the joking and the heckling and the picking on each other and stuff. Well, going out into the real world and then coming back to our imaginary world, and then there were 3 officers that came in for a pre-brief, and man, it was Larry and someone else going at it with those things going back and forth, and I had to break them. I was like, whoa, hold on. Hey, can you 3 leave the room? And I had to remind everybody, hey, you can't these people don't understand this. All these officers aren't like weird and crazy like us, where we just accept that. But
Yeah, our graveyard humor was a little twisted.
It was twisted, but it was fun, and it kept us all in line, and it's actually just a relief. But yeah, it was really. It's always fun to see, when people their different paths or where they mature in those levels and like that. Not that I was a great individual over there, but just seeing it from a start to a finish. Like I see Chris Nielsen now, and I see him as before he was this millennial. He wore me out, man. I was like, what is wrong with this kid?
Well, that's right. You were his sergeant for a while.
He can't get shit, and now he's, it's like, oh, he's one of these senior guys. He's squared away at what he's doing,
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just funny to see the evolution of that. But yeah, that was good to see when before you made your exit from there, just what you brought, what you delivered, and what you had.
Yeah. You're such an inspiration. And I hate it that an injury had to inspire people, but my God, you just ran a half marathon. I don't know how you do anything on that leg, and it's just amazing to me. And I mean, you didn't take any time off, really. You were back in it somehow, some way, mentally and physically. Tell us about it.
Okay, so November 2017, we came in on a Saturday to run a warrant. It was like this big push that the current chief had at the time. We were going to be hitting like South Central really hard. So Narcotics had made some buys at this apartment on Bonnie View. They said, hey, there may be some AKs. We've seen some AKs and stuff like that, some rifles up there and stuff like that. Some bad dudes might be up there. So just head on a swivel, be careful. All right. Because it was on the second floor landing, the way right there at 3000 Bonnie View, those same crappy apartments. The way it's structured, at the time, Sergeant Wolverton had said, hey, you bring the gas and less lethal. So, like you and me, Misty, both are 40 mil operators. So I had a backpack full of gas and, canisters and all that in case we had to lock it down or get shots fired that we could get from a distance from the second floor and still get gas and stuff in there from a distance because of the layout of the apartment. So I had a backpack. I was way in the back of the stack. I remember going up, I'm in the back, so I'm trying to catch up. So I got both hands on the rails trying to run up this thing. We get in there. There's a bunch of people in there. Everybody's throwing people on the ground. It's myself and Sergeant Wolverton. They're like in the living room, kitchen area. I told him if he wants me to clear the balcony. He says, yeah, go ahead. So I go to open the door. I move a couch out of the way because it's blocking the door. So I move the couch out of the way, open the door. I thought it was a big enough gap. So knowing that it's a small gap and I couldn't get my rifle through, I went ahead and dropped my rifle down. I pulled out my pistol, and I went to go through that doorway. Well, I ended up getting wedged between the doorway and the door frame. Not a big deal, right? I mean, it's happened before. You get wedged in, you kind of push through, and you kind of pinball your way through. When I did that the second time, I just heard what sounded like 3 automatic gunshots, like automatic fire. Kind of stunned me a little bit because we didn't carry automatics anymore. We just carried semi-auto. So I kind of looked at Wolverton. Wolverton's looking around. We're trying to figure out where he came, and then I look down towards that doorway, and I see a bunch of little pellets of red and blue on that door. And then I look down at my left leg. My left leg looks like the scene of the cover of Iron Maiden on the Time Traveler. I mean, it is just out there. I can see my... Yeah, I mean, it immediately went to that. So, of course, in your head, I'm like, fuck. Immediately, the training kicks in, right? Like, Matt, we've all done it. The training just kicks in just like it becomes second nature. So I knew either something had happened, either I just got shot at from somebody or something happened, and I go look to my rifle and it's on fire. So I immediately put that on safe. I actually was able to walk for a little bit and get down on the ground by the couch. And I remember going to this course in San Francisco. It's called the Urban Shield, and we did this med stop, and it was taught by this Air Force PJ pararescue guy. I wish I knew his name. If I could, man, I'd go shake his hand, because he, that crash course of tourniquet saved my life. But he told us, keep a tourniquet, your first tourniquet, where you can see it. So immediately knew where it was. I grabbed it, pulled it out, started working on it, started setting it up and everything. By that time, everybody else kind of figured out what had just happened. I put my rifle down, I'm on the ground, and I start putting it on. And then immediately Borchard and Jimmy Borchard and Sergeant Wolverton come over and start finishing up, putting out the rest of that, that tourniquet. And it turns to a little bit of a chaos, right? Because we got guys on the ground, suspects on the ground. We've got me over here. I just made a mess. And we're trying to, get myself stabilized and all that in my leg. Luckily, Doc Alex Eastman was there. He's down at the bottom, so they're calling for him to come up. I'm there in the living room still. And then by now, it's, they're getting everybody out. And in my mind, it's like when I was putting on the tourniquet, a couple of things ran through my mind. First of all, when I got to SWAT and I started doing that stuff, I mentally, one thing that I did not do when I was in a gang, I mentally prepared myself for whenever I would get shot. And that's one thing that I did learn from several operators, not the if, but the when, especially from, he's a major now, Mark Villarreal. I remember he saying that. It's not if you get shot, it's when you get shot. Tim Houston took a big, drove that point. So I knew, well, this is it, right? Just got shot. So I start putting on the tourniquet. So I'm fighting the shock that's trying to set in, because your body's starting to shake a little bit and you're fighting through that. Second, I'm trying to fight the thoughts in my head of, am I going to die? Am I not? Am I not going to get to see my kids? Am I going to say bye to Lisa or what? I knew one thing was certain, was that two things. I was not going to die on the same fucking down the street from where Norm died. Refused to have that happen. And the second was, I was going to get to the hospital and say bye to Lisa and the kids, if that was going to happen. So that mindset then was what's going through my mind. So it turned into fight mode. Like, I got to make it to the hospital. I got to make it to the hospital. So, it's funny because there's 1,000 funny stories now that come out of that whole thing, between me asking, Rob, hey, how does my leg look? And he makes this just hellacious face, just, what the hell?
Not the right thing to do.
No, not the right thing to do. To the fireman who couldn't find the
Typical 30s.
Yeah, typical 30s.
Even messing with you when you're shot.
To the
3 times.
Yeah, to when the ambulance guy couldn't find the fentanyl, and Eastman had to use his, and then he hands him one, and the valve breaks, and Eastman doesn't have a gloves on. He's like, I'm supposed to die from this, and God, there's just so many funny stories. I felt like we hit every pothole in Oak Cliff all the way to Parkland in that ambulance, and my leg was just bouncing around.
There's plenty of those.
Yeah. So we get there, the fentanyl helped. I was able to sit up and talk to my wife, tell her to meet us at Parkland. And God bless her, man. She's a trooper. She picked up the kids from soccer and went to Parkland. She's great. Kids were there and all that. And I think, the funny one was, Eastman is in there. First of all, he's in his BDUs, SWAT gear and all that. And the kids are like, oh, this guy's in his SWAT gear. Next thing you know, they turn around and here's Eastman out. He's got a long white coat on, and he's like, well, I'm actually going to operate on your dad here in a few minutes in the back. And they're just like, oh my gosh, this dude is on the SWAT team and he's a doctor. Wow. So that was pretty comical to see that. And then that started the journey. I mean, they took me to the back, and I basically lost 30% of muscle and tissue from the 3 rounds. It basically filleted the top part of what is your shin muscle, where you get your shin splints.
Cool. So you don't have shin splints anymore.
I still kind of do now.
That's a plus.
Yeah, it is a plus. It is a plus.
So just to clarify, it bump fired, right? Your own rifle, it bump fired. It got hung on the door, some equipment.
We believe, and like I said, I took it to Rob, who's there's something thinks he got caught on one of the lanyards that was on my mag carriers, caused a bump fire, caused those 3 rounds because it's hanging down. It just caused just a bump like that.
It just cycled off its own recoil and gravity, the weight of the rifle.
Yeah. And so
It
then we
makes
could
sense
think
why it would sound like a full auto, just because it's a bump fire.
Yep. No, you hit on the nail. That's basically what the only thing we could think of is like that. I get wheeled in, and I end up having about 8 different surgeries on it, and it's mostly every other day they would go in there and they would kind of clean around the muscles and make they don't say they regrow, they kind of say they regenerate. So each muscle throughout your body kind of knows there's a job, that's a function that's not working in that part of the body, so it starts trying to work its way till they can connect, and then they start working with each other. So that was kind of the way it was explained to me, that they were cleaning it out to let these muscles keep regenerating until they can all meet and start, having to function again. They put this, it's like a cow skin on it. It's like a wound vac that just sat over it just to trick the body into believing that there is still skin there when there really was just a big wound, with bandages just to let the body keep healing on its own. It's amazing what the body does. Obviously, I didn't take my body for granted until, I dang near blew my leg off. I started looking into it and reading, and you have time at the hospital now because you're just sitting in the, in a room. But the muscles were just regenerating on their own, and every surgery I'd go in and clean it up. I went home, and about a week later, I went back for a checkup, and they went to take the wound off, and there's another doctor, Doc Benitez, and he's like, "Hey, it's infected." And I was like, "Wait, it's what?" He's like, "It's infected." So I thought, well, give me some pills and get sent home. And he's like, "No, they got to get you in the back real quick, start giving you some antibiotics." So immediately got wheeled into the back. They had to go in there and redo the way my leg. They actually took another part of my leg, the muscles from there, and they what's called a muscle flap, where they move muscles to the front towards where the wound is to try to accelerate the healing on it and accelerate the healing on like where the infection was. It's kind of hard to describe the medical terms of it because I'm not a big medical term guy, but the best thing I could describe it, if you guys ever see that Project 11, I think it's the one about the Alex Smith, the quarterback.
Yeah.
His recovery, his injury. Basically, I went through that because you remember they treated his leg like a gunshot wound. I think he went to San Antonio and worked with those doctors that were there. Basically, that's kind of what happened to me, in a sense.
I watched that, and I took from it, and you said it, it's amazing what the body will do. I find it amazing what the mind will do. Mentally, how did you push through the...
It was hard a little bit. I think the first couple of days I was pretty pissed just because it happened, and I felt, again, you feel like a failure. You feel like you failed your guys. Like, how the hell does this happen? Why does it happen to me? Blah, blah, blah. Then I think it was Monday night, Scott McDonald came to visit, and I think he knew. He knew that I was starting to kind of go to a dark place. So he said, "Hey, how you feel?" "I feel fine." He's like, "No, how you feel?" I was like, "Meh." Kind of told him how I felt, and he's like, "There's a guy I want you to talk to." So I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he's like, he went through what you went through. And he's a good dude. All right. Passed me on this guy. It's a SEAL Team 6 guy, dog handler. His name was Jimmy Hatch. Not to go into particulars about Jimmy Hatch, but he's a hero in his own field with the SEAL teams and Team 6. I had a couple conversations with him. He's a great guy. Golly. He was actually injured during the Bo Bertle rescue mission. He took an AK-47 round to his leg, shattered it, and it basically ended his career. From other podcasts that I've heard, his name is mentioned in several books. He was a great operator. Just one of those great operating dudes from that community. And we talked, and he kept my mind in check. As far as the going to the depression part, Jimmy kept it in check. He really did, and that built my mindset for making a comeback.
What did he say to you, or what piece of his advice really hit home? Like, give us an example.
He told me to take everything in chapters and not try to tackle it all at once. He said, finish what's in front of you, get that chapter, and then go to the next one. So it made sense to me, make the chapters.
What was that first chapter that you had to complete?
So I got hurt early Saturday morning. Saturday evening, Doc Eastman comes back with his wife, who's also a doctor, and they're checking up on me. My wife's there and all that. And he's like, hey, tomorrow I'm going to have the physical therapist come up here and try to get you start trying to walk again. And I'm like, dude, did you not see my leg? I mean, it looks like fajita meat. You know, how am I supposed to walk?
It looks like a shark. Literally just took a huge hunk out of your leg.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of the guys in the SEAL community did say that I should tell by it's a shark bite. I don't know if it would fly in Dallas, Texas, but that's all right. Yeah.
Most sharks make it this far.
Some people, I've actually been in the gym where people stare at it and I'm like, I got bit by a shark, and they kind of walk off like, oh my God. But that night, Eastman's like, hey, I'm going to have the physical therapist come by. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? And he's like, I mean, if you're a bad motherfucker, you'll try to walk. I mean, that's the last thing you want to tell a SWAT guy, right? It's like, man, hold this beer. Watch this. And she did. She did come the next. She came the next day. She brought some crutches and a walker, and I think Garrett Hellinger and Marshall Milligan, two other really good dudes that were in the 30s by then, were there. And we, I got high on morphine, and I tried the crutch, and I was like, yeah, no. So then we tried the walker, and I think it was Marshall that just belted on me around, and she was like, hey, if he falls, you got to grab him. So I think it was Marshall. I think it was one of those two, and the other one was like on the side, just kind of pushing me. And in typical SWAT fashion, you push each other. And I made a little loop in the room. And she was like, hey, when do you want to come back? And I was like, come back tomorrow. I said, come back every day, whenever you can. I want to walk. Are you sure? I said, yeah, I want to walk. I said, I want to walk out of here. So I made the goal. The first chapter was to walk out of Parkland. Get out of the hospital. I want to go home. That was the first goal. And one thing too, go back to that, how important and great the SWAT team was. There was a SWAT team guy with me the whole time I was there. 24 hours a day, the whole time I was there. There was not, unless I think there was a call out there I had to go, but the majority of the time somebody was there. Whether it was from the equipment support side to the operator, somebody was always there, even overnight. When I talked to Jimmy Hatch, and I told him about that, he said, hey man, that's some team shit right there. He said it like that. So that was a big compliment, I thought, to our SWAT team. The fact that these dudes would take time out of their day to sit with me when they could be doing whatever, shooting the O course, the whatever we do, to sit there with me and make sure that my family, whatever they needed, whatever had to get done. I think my best meal was probably Renfro's. He brought me a taquito. Those chips and hot sauce are like the greatest. But I had it all, from Dion's donuts to, you name it. They knew that the hospital food was killing me, and they would call like before their shift, like, hey man, I'm coming in. I got the 3 o'clock. What can I get you? You want Jimmy John's? You want pizza? I ate it all, but man, those guys were all there, and I love every single one of those guys for that. It was great.
You finally get healed up, and you get out of the hospital. What's the next transition for you? You go back to full duty. What did you do? Did you end up?
So once I got home and my legs started healing a lot faster than what they thought. They thought it'd be 10 to 12 months. Maybe they thought 8 to 10. I think Eastman told me that, and then I set my goal to get there before 8. I started doing my rehab at the Tom Landry Center, and it was pretty painful because my leg was dormant. I had kind of drop foot, and I thought I was going to have to medically retire because I'm going to be able to, first of all, more than anything, I had a drop foot, so I'm like, man, I'm not going to be able to run with my kids anymore. Man, this is going to suck. And then that was one of those deals that Jimmy did talk about chapter. So that was another chapter, right, is getting back home to run with my kids, and be home life. But I just drop foot, like I'd walk and I just knock over something or trip myself over walking with it. So I was like, God, this is frustrating. I got to the tolerance and it says, your foot's just dormant. We got to wake it up, and it's going to hurt. And oh my God, it hurt so bad. And people ask me all the time, which part of this whole thing hurt the worst? I really don't know whether it was the gunshot, the skin graft, or that day at Tom Landry when they were just jamming my foot left and right, up and down, to wake up those muscles. Because I was in tears. It was like I thought I was being tortured. But they did tell me, if you want to go back to where you want to go back to the SWAT team, we gotta cross this bridge here. So I mentally prepared myself for that. I did that. I worked on that until I got strong enough, and then, I could pass all their tests. And then I then brought the Stratman gave me the list of our SWAT PT standards. I said, here, I want to go back to the SWAT team. I want to pass the PT test. Here's the standards right here. And we went from every single sit-ups, push-ups, the vertical jump, everything, to the running. And I started running in the pool there at the Tom Landry Center, to the track, working on my foot, working on my gait, working on my step, working on my stride. The PT guy that I had was incredible. He was working on getting his license, taking his test, and he wanted to go work at Walter Reed with wounded soldiers. So I was kind of like his dream. I know he was my dream too, because we would do these exercises and I would tell him what work, what didn't, and then I'd go home and do them. So that also helped accelerate my recovery, my time at home that I put into work to get back. So yeah, that definitely got me back.
Yeah, I remember having several conversations with you during that process on the phone. And
I think you were at left field, right? I think I'd wake you up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Or you were up in the middle of the night.
No, I was probably working in the middle of the night. You
yeah,
probably woke me up while I was working.
That's what it was, because you were like, yeah. When I couldn't sleep because of all the meds, I call you and you're like, hey, man, what are you doing? You're like, nothing, watching planes.
I remember having several conversations with you about that and trying to encourage you. I know that was one of your big things, was that foot, but you pushed through it, you persevered, you closed those chapters. You just ran a half marathon, right?
Yes, sir.
What is that, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
How do you feel after that?
Feel good. It's like a good accomplishment. I don't think I'll ever do a full. I was in a lot of pain already. My whole left leg, from my groin calf to everything, was in a lot of pain. But I got it right at 2 hours, and that was my goal. So it was a good accomplishment for me to do that. I think the biggest thing for me, man, is on the side of that is I went back to the SWAT team, and I still stayed there as an operator, and I took the PT test with everybody else. That deal.
For years.
For years.
For
3 more years. Yeah, I think I took the PT test like 5 more times. Neat story too. I think the day that when I was going to take my test, to take the test again, some of the SWAT team guys showed up to take the test with me, like literally take the test with me. So that was neat. That's exactly what the SWAT team guys do. I had guys on the sideline cheering, and guys on the track there running with me. That was a great motivator. Instead of just being the one guy out there at the track and everyone just staring at you, they were there yelling at me, pushing me. And like I said, I'll always love those guys for it.
What was your support during this time frame?
My family, my wife. At home, definitely all of them. My in-laws, my in-laws have been phenomenal through my SWAT career. When my wife was traveling, and I get those midnight call-outs, they'd come and watch my kids. That's amazing. Everybody. I mean, my sister would finish her shift at Parkland. She's a NICU nurse. She'd come to a house, do my dressing, because she swore up and down she didn't want to let me get another infection. So she would come and do the dressing before her shift. They work 12-hour shifts, and then after her shift. My wife would walk with me when I was getting back. Dang, man, everybody. I don't think I didn't. I mean, Matt visit me at home, to come check up on me and stuff like that, and just.
I heard that. I heard he gives good foot massages.
He did, yeah, man, it was great. I mean, he's only got, yeah.
I was like, you can't run now, dude.
He's like,
got him.
Yeah. No, he's like, don't fight it, SA. I say, hey, keep that gang stuff where it is. Everybody had something. It was funny. One of the clowns, is something else, Rich Chamberlain, he called check up on me too. And then one day, in typical Rich Chamberlain fashion, he's like, "Be by your phone." Okay.
Hang on. He said that in a pirate.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Is that in a pirate voice?
No, that's
Darian.
literally that's the way Rich talks to me.
okay.
He's
My
like,
bad.
"Be by your phone," and I'm like, "All right." Now I was with my phone, and I
Your
get a video, and it's a video of Marcus Luttrell sent me like an encouraging message.
Wow.
So it was pretty cool. I still have it saved on my phone.
He was sick, wasn't he? He had the flu or something.
He had the
when
flu,
said it.
yeah. It's pretty neat. But it's something he said at the very end that motivated me too. He said, get yourself back online, and don't beat yourself up because your teammates will do that for you. And I didn't beat myself up. I got myself back online.
And your teammates.
And my teammates beat me up for it, yeah. And they sure did. Yeah, and it's pretty neat when you get a message from somebody like that. And I did also get one from Mark Wahlberg. I got a real cool football from Roger Staubach, and Jennifer Gates came to come visit me.
Oh, wow.
So that's John Fortune also.
Damn.
I know.
Roll out the red carpet for Darian.
It was pretty neat. It was pretty neat journey. I'm definitely thankful for everybody.
I didn't know this, but during this time period, you were still recovering, and you were at the Cathedral Guadalupe, and you saved Mr. Heflin's life and gave him chest compressions.
I did. I was at
Darian's always somewhere where.
Wow. I mean, what do we call that? A ship magnet? Is that okay?
I think that's what it is. So my parents were receiving an award from the bishop at the time, and we had parked on the street, and we put coins in the parking meter. And I told my wife, said, "Hey, right after communion, I'm going to go outside because there's a reception right afterwards to my parents and all the recipients." I said, "I'm going to go outside, put more coins in the car." So I go to communion there at the cathedral, and I go outside and I put more coins in the meter box and everything. And I'm walking in, and right about then, there's all this commotion in the little reception place where they're supposed to have the reception. And a lady walks up, and she's like, "Can you get a doctor?" And I was like, she's like, I'm like, "Well, ma'am, I'm a policeman. Can I help you?" And she's like, "My husband's falling down, and he's not moving." And I got this like badass limp going at the time, and I kind of, hobble my ass over there, and I look at this poor guy, and he's kind of turning blue, and I'm thinking to myself, like, "Golly, man, I gotta do something." So first thing that came into mind was like, okay, chest compressions, and he started doing chest compressions, and then of course, like, you're like, well, we did some CPR and SWAT, and I was like, man, is it 15? Is it 30? Is it?
Just got to do it to stay alive.
Yeah, so I'm like, how about I just start chest compressions and then I'll go. So then I started doing the chest compressions and all that, and I'm still going, and everything's like cracking. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm killing this dude, because I hear all these ribs and bones are cracking and everything, and I'm trying to figure out, like, man, am I doing the right thing? And it's turning more blue, and then I'm thinking to myself, by now there's like a group of people around me.
Videoing you probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to think I'm killing this poor guy. And then I remember thinking to myself, like, golly, man, I wish somebody said, man, I need some help. I said, you know what I need? I need a freaking defibrillator. I need a fucking defibrillator. I think that's what I need. And I turn around, and there's a nurse, off-duty nurse with a defibrillator, like literally standing to the right of me. She's like, "I'm a nurse. I have a defibrillator right here." I was like, oh, Jesus, thank God. So, we take off his shirt, we put a defibrillator on, and it's, if you guys ever mess with a defibrillator, it basically gives you instructions on where to put everything and all that, and, hey, back away. And it shocked him like twice and all that. And he kind of started coming around a little bit. By that time, the fire department pulls up, and they take in a baler, and he survived. He did, yeah. And
How many broken ribs did you get?
30 broken ribs.
yeah, probably.
Do we have that many?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Darian walked over with his Mr. Deeds toe and started waddling that thing around, trying to figure out what to do.
It was
Cracking him up like a Thanksgiving turkey. Going,
It did,
what
yeah.
are you doing?
Yeah, the heart wasn't a problem. It was the ribs, the rehab for the ribs.
No, that's awesome though.
It was wild. It was one of those deals where you're just like, oh, okay, this is Jesus talking here. I just asked for a nurse and some help and a defibrillator. Here it is, just wall out of nowhere. So I went back. I met Ron. We had a lunch with the bishop and all that. That was pretty neat too.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then 2019, officer-involved shooting. I won't get into the details because we're not at our 2-year mark.
2019, you're shooting. Can you talk about that? You're an active member of SWAT when that happened, right?
Yes. So we're at home and we got a call, on our call system to report to this police station where we keep to our SWAT station, which was Central Patrol at the time. We get there and we meet homicide, and they let us know that we're going to execute a capital murder warrant for some guys that did a murder earlier in the day. Another Southeast legend, Brian Tabor, was there. He gave us information on it. He gives all the information, everything. It's a very violent crew. They've actually been watching them in covert vehicles. Our plainclothes officers have been watching him and some other people. They've seen him with rifles and stuff like that. So they knew they were very dangerous from that go. They were a violent crew. So their best solution was to call the SWAT team, and our best avenue was going to conduct a surrounding call out of the apartment they were in and just have them come out. So we, just to try to get them away from the rifles and all that. My squad, we were going to take the rear perimeter, what we call the Charlie side. And so the best way that we could do it without going to APCs, we were in a Suburban, and we would park and just kind of walk our way through the breezeway and just set up in a cover position to kind of watch the windows and stuff in case somebody tried to scoot out through there. And again, I was back on the 40 millimeter and in charge of gas and stuff in case something happens. We pull up. I could kind of hear on the radio that they're saying that it sounded like they had left before we got there, and now they were coming back, and now they're like on foot. We're getting out of the Suburban, and I see my he's a squad leader now at the time, Rob Hamilton. He runs and confronts one guy. I notice he's got to deal with him by himself with no cover, so I run up, stand in front of him, cover while he's doing that. As I see that, I see a second guy kind of run towards me. He sees me, he runs the other way, actually towards the APCs where all the SWAT teams are. So I make my way towards that, try to get eyes on that back of that door and the patio, and our third guy comes out from in between buildings. See him moving from my left to right, immediately see he's got a rifle. And then once again, like, all the training kicked in. Matt, you said it best. With your shootings, and people ask about what's it like. It's like when you take that shot of peppermint schnapps in the cold winter and you take it and it just slowly just works through your body. You're right. He came across. We both kind of looked at each other. And I knew then, when I had that feeling come through my body, like, this is it. All the training of the standing in front of the target, kicked in, and, at the end of the, when it's all said and done, I was the one standing. And he went down. It was surreal because I think I'd been in as a witness. In other words, all standing around in about 4 or 5 other officer-involved shootings, Southeast, gang unit, SWAT, been shot at plenty of times. I think once with you at Southeast, but I was never on the actual shooting trigger side of it. So it was definitely different. But yeah, at the end of the day, I was thankful that all that Dan Calasanto yelling kicked in, and all that training did work for that day.
Yeah, and at 2019, it was still to this day, we're so scrutinized from a social perspective. You just never know. You can be 100% justified in what you do, and you can get attacked, whether media or, in some cases, leaders can attack you. What kind of support did you get from this, if you could talk about it?
Man, once again, SWAT team-wise, great support. Guys checked up on me every day, checked on me that night. they all, you know, it was during the fair, so they all were like, hey, here, have my fair ticket, go enjoy it, because I was off. All the officers that were there, buddies of mine, Matt, the other guys, the phone calls, Misty, Josh, I think we had some conversations again about it, support. You know, I think we talked about it earlier, you know, Sergeant Larry Gordon one time when he was on the SWAT team, and he said, hey, there's going to come a time where you're going to need to be justified legally, socially, and administratively. And he, you know, I think at the time we kind of laughed at Larry, and he was right. He was so right. Legally, there were no issues. You know, administratively, with the command staff at the time, there were issues, but the legal side took care of that. And socially, there's a little bit of it. I had some officers kind of parked in my house for a couple of days. So Larry was right.
That's why you had the issues with the department. It's the social aspect drives the thoughts of many people. They jump to conclusions at times. I'm not speaking for them. I wasn't part of that decision-making process or whatever it may have been, but we all know that. It's unfortunate that social justice seems to be the driving factor, not the fact that an individual was fleeing the home with a assault rifle, nor was it the fact that there was a murder suspect. You know, those things go out the window. It's what is everybody going to think about it? Well, why don't we worry about what's in front of us right now?
Mm-hmm.
And
I totally agree.
It's unfortunate, but it's fortunate that that's not how that turned out.
Yeah.
And
like I said, I think the shootings before, especially like the one to Southeast, Bronco, rest in peace. I was there, his 2 shootings, and you know, the ones in SWAT, and never, like those, we never crossed those bridges, never even mentioned. Never had to. Someone took care of that. It's a little different now. It's definitely different.
Going through your injuries and recovering from your injuries, from a financial standpoint, is there something that kind of helped you along the way?
Yeah. First of all, the ATO, the assistant officer, just a great group of people. And then other associations also have their own version of financial assistance. I know, like, I'm a member of the NLEO, so they also help me out. But like, one of the things once I got to the hospital, and you get to the hospital bed, it's like, okay, how are the bills going to get paid here, right? Because you're like, they're telling you you're going to be out of work for like a year at home. And I'm like, wow, okay, are we going to cover all these bills? Are we, you know, or what? So the assistant officer came in and with some financial assistance first, which helped alleviate a lot of the stress. Anytime someone can help you financially, it's great. Second is I had the off-duty insurance. For example, the First Responder Benefit Trust is one version that they have, you know, that the Dallas Association has, where if you're injured off duty, you can get an insurance for a small amount that you pay a month. That goes a long way if you get injured, because, like, you know, we're all cops. We don't make a bunch of money. I mean, a lot of us do work extra jobs, side jobs to supplement some of our income. And when you get injured and stuff like that, it goes a long way. It's a great plan to have as a backup when you get injured, you know, especially patrolmen, young guys. I would say go to your associations and look at the insurance and see what you can have, because, you know, you can have a wreck. Someone can hit you on the squad car and you may be out for a while. At least that insurance is peace of mind to help you get through it.
Yeah, you can get hurt at the gym or just out on a jog.
Correct.
And a lot of officers really lean on and rely on additional income that's outside of what the city provides us.
Yes, sir.
I think through all of these incidents now, I see your passion in training. You are so passionate, and I see you combine with Baines, and y'all do a great job putting on training. Is that what's pushing you, what's motivating you now?
Yes, it is. Obviously, Norm was a big driving factor to pass on, you know, what I know, what I've learned, especially in the SWAT stuff. A lot of officers see you as a former SWAT guy, so questions and some examples and want some, can you have their, answer their questions. And you can ask me wherever, however, and if you need me to help you, I will help you as much as I can. I love working with training stuff with Baines. I think Baines and me we just work really well when it comes to training and teaching because we both have the same passion. I think, Baines, like myself, we learned a lot from Norm, and I think Matt knows that through his experiences and what we both have experienced and talked about, that we'd be wrong for not passing on what we've learned and what we have now. So anytime that anybody has a question or wants me to help them put on a class, I'll jump on in a heartbeat. Some of that is up to Misty. I mean, I think you set a bar for any female that ever wants to come to SWAT, and it's pretty cool.
It's pretty high too.
It's a high ass bar because you're
Not
so
even fair. It's not fair.
Gosh, Misty, I still remember seeing you benching that 135 on that bench. I mean, Jesus, those pull-ups you would do and help me with the O course. I mean, amazing. But at the same time, I've also seen you mentor females to get ready to try out for SWAT, and you take your own personal time. You go out of your way to hopefully have the next female go in there, and that's a great compliment. It's one of the greatest things that I like about you.
Thank you. We brought you on because you have so many different ways to inspire. And I've never seen your drive towards policing falter. You've always had an incredible attitude, even as you've gotten older, where a lot of people's attitude changes. And then you went through the ringer with your injury, so physically, mentally, and then you've just come off that officer-involved shooting in a time period where it was very controversial and you were doing your job. And so I hope that our listeners out there can take one piece or all of it from you and realize that you have to just keep driving and stay passionate about what you do. And you are such an example of that.
Well, thank you.
Well, I think it's a perfect way to wrap it up. I want to thank you for coming on. Thank you for being so inspirational. I'm glad that Matt actually was able to sit in here to be part of this recording. You two guys making, as he put it, officers harder to kill is very important for the future of Dallas Police Department and all departments across the country, because it's not easy being a cop right now. Thank you for your service, and I look forward to continuing our friendship, and maybe you'll come back on as a guest co-host, hopefully.
That'd be fun. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Darian. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you.
Yeah, Darian, thank you for your service.
Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. Down when you're lonely, I'll pull you up. Life leaves you heavy when the going gets tough. I'll be your shoulder, together we'll run. Up from the bottom, yeah, we'll rise above. Hey brother, hey sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far the sun and the moon, I'll never give up on you. I'll never give up. sister, I'll never give up on you. Hey Mrs., hey mister, I'll see this all the way through. No matter how far, for the gold and the blue, I'll never give up on you.